Following a man being arrested in the UK for the heinous crime of hugging people, this came in. A woman in the UK was arrested by police after she filmed a video inside an almost completely empty hospital and posted it online. The clip shows the woman walking through virtually empty corridors and filming empty wards at Gloucestershire Royal Hospital. And she said, "This is a disgrace. It is so dead empty. All the people in our country desperately waiting for treatment, cancer treatment, heart disease. Honestly, this is making me angry." And she states all this as she films rows of empty waiting chairs and hospital beds. And the woman expressed shock as how quiet the hospital was, saying she expected to be more than a few people around when there's actually nobody. Did she get thanked for highlighting her? No. She was arrested on, quote, suspicion of a public order offence, unquote. Suspicion of. What an interesting fascist term that is. You can make anything up with terms like that. How is suspicion of, in those circumstances, breaking the law? What would happen if the people dismantled all police and security cameras for the suspicion of spying on the public? That would be fair, would it not? Portal people stated this: vandals in the US have attacked the homes of the non-Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and Senate Majority Leader and senile clown Mitch McConnell. Fake blood and severed pig's head were reportedly left outside of the Democrat Pelosi's California house, which was also daubed with graffiti. The words, "Where's my money?" and some expletives were scrawled across the Republican Mr. McConnell's house in Kentucky, and it comes amid a political battle over a coronavirus stimulus package. Personally, I don't advocate vandalism. There are better and less criminal ways of targeting these people and making them accountable for their actions. Clever thinking and non-compliance is the way forward, not angst and destruction of property. You give them an out. Senile Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell dubbed the effort to increase direct payments to $2,000 socialism for rich people, eliciting an incredulous reaction from Bernie Sanders as the GOP senile Senate continued to decline to take up the matter on Thursday. In his second consecutive day of attacks on the bill, McConnell accused Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer of engineering a bill that sends thousands of dollars to people who don't need the help. Really? And he also blocked requests from Schumer and Sanders to hold votes on the bill this week. And he said, borrowing from our grandkids to do socialism for rich people is a terrible way to get help to families who actually need it. Do these people think before they speak? For rich people. I thought it was for those on less than $75,000 a year. Is that determined as being rich now? Thousands of dollars for people who don't need help, he said. Just how out of touch is this jackass? But what do we notice now is Schumer and Pelosi wants the extra stimulus to go ahead now that Trump is out of the way. It's a joke. Those two have been blocking it for the past 5 months. Tony Blair this morning said on a TV morning show, Good Morning Britain, how's your fascism today? And he said the only way you'll get your liberty back is to take the vaccine. Really? Perhaps Mr. Blair forgot the memo last month from the World Horror Organization when the World Horror Organization's top emergency expert, sounds important, jackass, Mike Ryan said vaccines do not equal zero COVID. Unreal. Congress this week handed Donald Trump a major bipartisan defeat in the waning days of his presidency as the Republican-led Senate, soon to disappear, voted to override his veto of a $740 billion defense bill. And it's the first time one of Trump's vetoes has been surmounted. The final tally was 81-13, easily exceeding the 2/3 threshold needed to override the veto, with support coming from Republicans and Democrats. Oh dear. I told you they were one and the same. The massive annual defense authorization measure will now become law. Trump had sought to intimidate GOP senators into voting to sustain his veto, unleashing a bitter attack on fellow Republicans as the chamber prepared to begin the override process. And Trump said weak and tired Republican leadership will allow the bad defense bill to pass. Negotiate a better bill or get better leaders now, he stated. But you'll see how they fought, and I mean fought, to get a war bill passed, but not to pass the stimulus bill. And at which point will Americans see the clowns are not there for their benefit? But does anyone ask, who or what are we fighting to spend $750 billion on defense? It's not defense, because they're not defending the people. It's an attack bill. The same DOD that is riddled with corruption and fraud, as they have previously admitted. And given the trustee is the likely source of this funding, why wasn't there a strict clause? Defend America and its people inside DC, or you get no funding. Period. Then the Portal people wrote this: as Mr. Trump scrambles to fuel claims of a stolen election in the final days of his administration, the nation's 10 living secretaries of defense warned Sunday that the US military should have no role in determining the outcome of a US election. No, they just determine every other country's. And each of us swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We did not swear it to an individual or party. That was penned by the Defence Secretaries Mark Esper, James Mattis, Ash Carter, Chuck Hagel, Leon Panetta, Dick Cheney, William Coincidence, Robert Gates, William Perry, and Donald Rumsfeld. Efforts to involve the US Armed Forces in resolving election disputes would take us into dangerous, unlawful, and unconstitutional territory, they all said. What about 2000? Oh, that's 5 loops ago. I can't expect you to remember that. Civilian and military officials who direct or carry out such measures would be accountable, including potentially facing criminal penalties for the grave consequences of their actions on our republic, they added. Yet again, typical one-side reporting again, and typical globalist names crop up again. I'm going to quote them. Each of us swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. All of you, then, are guilty as charged, as all of you have failed to do anything to protect or support anything except globalist elites. Period. China will overtake the US to become the world's largest economy by 2028, 5 years earlier than previously forecast. I wouldn't even go that far. I would say this year. The UK-based Centre for Economics and Business Research said China's skillful management of COVID-19 would boost its relative growth compared to the US and Europe in coming years. Meanwhile, India is tipped to become the 3rd largest economy by 2030. They'll be the 2nd. Way before then. The CEBR releases its economic league table every year on December the 26th. And it said, although China was the first country hit by COVID-19, no, it wasn't. It controlled the disease through a swift and extremely strict action, meaning it did not need to repeat economically paralyzing lockdowns as European countries have done. As a result, unlike other major economies, it has avoided an economic recession in 2020 and is in fact estimated to see growth of 2% this year. Further evidence of the East taking over the West, as stated in several shows and also several years back. But the irony is it was the Western people and organisations who started the virus. Here is another of their latest tactic of deliberate stupidity designed to throw the masses off track. Sri Lanka. The forced cremation of a 20-day-old Muslim baby in Sri Lanka has highlighted the government's controversial order to burn the bodies of all those who died of COVID. Critics say the decision is not based in science and only intended to target the minority community. Mohammed Fahim and his wife Fatima Shavna were thrilled when their baby boy Sheikh was born on the 18th of November after a 6-year wait, but their joy was short-lived as on the night of the 7th of December, they noticed the baby was struggling to breathe. They rushed him to the capital Colombo's best children's hospital, the Lady Ridgeway. And then the doctors told them this. They told us the baby was in a severe condition and was suffering from pneumonia. But then, around midnight, they did an antigen test and told us the baby was positive for coronavirus. The doctors then tested Mr. and Mrs. Fahim, but both of them tested negative. I asked how my baby was positive when both of us, even the mother who was breastfeeding him, were negative. Mr. Fahim, you do realise it is a crime to ask a common sense question to a public supported corporation these days. Sorry. And despite tears and pleas, the anxious couple were sent home by officials who said more tests were needed and they were told to call the hospital for updates. The next day they were informed that their baby had died of COVID, which changed from pneumonia, and Mr. Fahim repeatedly asked doctors to conduct a PCR test to reconfirm this, and the hospital refused. There is the key line. Then doctors asked him to sign a document authorising the cremation of their child as required by law in Sri Lanka. Mr. Fahim refused. The cremation of bodies is forbidden in Islam and considered a form of mutilation forbidden by Allah. Muslims also believe in the resurrection of the physical body, and cremation is thought to prevent this. That is not correct. What this has all the hallmarks of is child trafficking or body parts to me. I hate to say it. Basic medical procedures and questioning denied. And as for the cremation, that is a parent's choice, not a state's choice. Here's a further report, which backs up clowns in panic again, of a host of new billionaires who have emerged in 2020, where their fortunes were propelled by a stock market surge as investors flocked to companies involved in the development of vaccines, treatments, medical devices, and everything in between. Altogether, Forbes found 50 new billionaires in the health sector in 2020. The most notable newcomers of the year are the scientists behind the two most successful vaccines for the coronavirus. There's no proof it is. One developed by Pfizer and the German biotech firm BioNTech, the other by Massachusetts-based Mode RNA, who have seen their net worths skyrocket since January. Ergo Sahin and Stefan Bancel, virtually unknown at the outset of 2020, both men are now billionaires several times over. BioNTech CEO Sahin, who co-founded the firm with Özlem Türeci, his wife, and the firm's chief medical officer, she owns no shares in the company, is now worth $4.2 billion. His French counterpart at Mode RNA, Stefan Bancel, has a $4.1 billion fortune. Mode RNA's meteoric rise also produced two more billionaires amongst its early investors, Harvard professor Timothy Springer and MIT scientist Robert Lanka. And then they said those vaccines will require billions of glass vials to safely transport them. Enter Italy. Pandemic Italy. Sergio Stevanato, a new billionaire and a majority shareholder in the privately owned Stevanato Group, which is making glass vials for several dozen vaccine efforts around the world. But it's not just vaccines. Companies developing antibody treatments and drugs to help doctors fight the virus have also benefited from the market frenzy. Carl Hansen, the CEO of Canadian biotech outfit AbCellera, is now worth $2.9 billion after his company went public on December the 11th. All very convenient. Fueled by the FDA approval last month of its antibody treatment developed with the pharma giant Eli Lilly. Even the firms working behind the scenes to help larger companies test new drugs and devices have seen their stock prices reach new highs. August Troendle, the founder and CEO of Cincinnati-based contract research firm MedPace, is now worth $1.3 billion, thanks to a nearly 70% jump in the company's shares since the beginning of the year. The new moguls hail from 11 different countries, but the majority live in China, the early epicenter of COVID-19, they say, which is now home to nearly 36 new healthcare billionaires. Chief among them is Hu Kun, silent T, the chairman of medical device manufacturer Contact Medical Systems, which went public on the Shenzhen Stock Exchange in August, before it started. Contact shares have risen nearly 150% since the IPO on the back of strong overseas sales of products ranging from pulse oximeters to pulmonary devices used for checking lung conditions, all of which have become necessary with the spread of the COVID-19 throughout the globe. And there you have it, clowns in panic proven again. Anyone making money to that level on the health of others is sick and twisted and a complete waste of a human vessel. And whilst all the distractions was going on, two rather hidden and perhaps related stories developed. The first one, a recently elected US lawmaker has died from COVID-19 according to the Portal people. The first member of the US Congress to die from the disease. On December 18th, during the COVID pandemic, the Republican Luke Letlow announced that he had tested positive for the virus, whereby he was hospitalized in Monroe. After his condition deteriorated, he was transferred to the intensive care unit of Ochsner LSU Health Shreveport on December the 23rd. On December the 29th, Letlow died of complications of COVID-19 at the age of 41, 5 days before he was scheduled to be sworn into office. But the Portal people forgot to add this line in. The hospital reported that he had no underlying conditions when admitted, but died in the ICU of a heart attack after a procedure. Why would you have a procedure for a common cold virus? Heart attack. And then it listed all the condolences to the US lawmaker. 6 of the 7 condolences all said the words heartbroken or broken hearts. Why would you put that about someone you care about who allegedly died of a heart attack? Staged event, or was he deleted? And then in Pennsylvania, the state representative Mike Reese died on Saturday from an apparent brain aneurysm. Republican Mike Reese died at Exeter Health Westmoreland Hospital with his family by his side. He was 42 years old and was first elected to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives in 2008. In December, Republican Reese had tested positive for the COVID-19. Connecting the dots now. So 2 new elected members, aged just 41 and 42, just died like that in the space of a few days. And the media is not raising suspicions. Yet if one person in 100,000 dies, it's spread all over the news. Funny.